Welcome to Taste Buds. I'm Debra Eckerling, Goal Strategist, writer, and foodie. And today I'm speaking with La Boîte's Lior Lev Sercarz, who, among other things, is Spice King and author of A Middle Eastern Pantry. Lior, so nice to see you.
Nice seeing you too. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for your time. So I have to ask the spice question first, which is how did you become Spice King? Sounds like a title.
It took some time. This year would be my 30th or so year as a cook, chef. I discovered spices in France, out of all places, in the late 90s, working in Brittany, in a small town called Cancale, for a chef by the name of Olivier Rollinger, who's very well known for his excellent food, but also usage of spices. And that's when I got really fascinated with this idea of spice trading and a lot of exotic items. It just took me about 10, 12 years after I left his restaurant and moved on and continued working elsewhere to realize that maybe this would be my call in life, if you will. And I kind of, quit my day cooking job and started blending spices at home, and luckily 16 years later, still around and really working with an amazing network of professional cooks and bakers and just professional culinarians around the world, as well as home cooks, and really elevating the food game in these kitchen by using great spices.
And you answered the question I was just about to ask, which is what is the value of spices? So it elevates things in the kitchen. What is it people need to know about spices that really will give them that light bulb?
I think that first of all, it's important for people to know that spices are an ingredient. Now, most people, like, of course it is. It's not the reality for many people. It is an ingredient. So if it's an ingredient in your recipe or your dish, you should make sure that you buy a good ingredient. The same way that you buy good produce and good protein. So understanding that they're an ingredient, so they need to be purchased responsibly, the best quality. Second, even though they are dry and shelf stable, they do have a shelf life, not in terms of, God forbid, getting sick or poisoned or something, but more so for the flavor and scent that with time will just evaporate, fade, and then you're left with some random powder that tasteless and flavorless.
It makes complete sense. So how do you tell a good spice from a bad spice? Is it just by smell, or are there other
So, of
hallmarks?
course, when going shopping for spices, you can't really sniff a container or a package on the shelf at a supermarket. That would be not so okay and weird. So I think a couple of quick tools shopping out there. It's the color of the spice that's kind of uniform and not like specks of different types of color. If something says that it's whole, it should be whole and not part powder and part whole. So those are key things. I always recommend buying small packages to begin with, to taste the producer or the company that makes them, to get familiar and knowing if you like it, and then try maybe a different couple of different suppliers. Then obviously when you bring that spice into your kitchen, open it up, taste it, smell it. It needs to have a good scent and a great flavor, pretty pungent. If it's something that's kind of mild and tasteless or scentless, then don't buy that again from that particular producer or company and whatnot. And regardless of that, even what you currently have at home, it would be good to have a little smell and taste of a little bit of each of the spices that you own, just so you know what they taste and smell like, because you are going to add them to your food. I think it's important to know what they're going to do to your dish.
I love it. And it all makes sense, Smell it, taste it, get acquainted with it, because then you could better use it in your food.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And now this is also a loaded question, but do you have a favorite spice or spice blend?
I don't really. I mean, I have so many, and even like doing a short list of five would be really difficult. I think that spices as a category or as a concept, to me, it's something that I wouldn't say that I cannot live without or not cook without. That would be extreme, but it would be very sad for me to cook without spices. And I think that that's something that we try for the last 16 or so years, both on the home front and on the professional side, to get people excited about the notion of using spices, single ones, blends, less complicated, more complicated, but just the notion of using them because they bring really, I think, a third dimension to your food.
I love that you just said that you'd be sad about it. The emotion behind it. I just love how you said it because it really shows that connection, and it's sort of like you have the experience. Why would you want to live without it? You don't have to, but you can always constantly play with spices and add them to
Yeah,
your food to change things up and make things interesting, right?
yeah,
Exciting.
yeah.
So tell me about your book. So, and I'll play a little show and tell if you're watching the video on this. If you are not, this beautiful A Middle Eastern Pantry. Uh, I feel like you could turn to any page and just get transported. Is that the idea?
Yeah, so very excited about this new book. It's number 4. What makes this book very unique and different from the 3 other ones is really talking about a lot of other things that aren't spices. There is a chapter about spices, but that's not the main point of the book. The focus is about the Middle East. It's where I'm from, so it's a region that I am very attached to. Um, Really going behind the scene of the cooking world in the kitchen is going to see the growers and the farmers and the small makers and this art form of a pantry, which a lot of us don't even, have a pantry in our homes because we just don't. And we, for some mysterious reason, look at, canned food or preserved food as lesser than fresh food. I wanted to argue that and highlight this amazing region where the pantry items are still used on a daily basis. There's a tradition of capturing product at their peak and fermenting, drying them, canning them, pickling them, so that they're available year round when these produce actually are not in season. Now at 2023, where you can get grapes year round, watermelon in December doesn't really seem weird anymore. We kind of lost track a bit about seasonality, and I think that the notion of the pantry has a lot to do with this. When is the season? Should I prepare my jars for my canned tomato or tomato sauce? Should I be making jam when it's berry season? And the idea is not to duplicate exactly what's done in Iran, Iraq, and Turkey, is to say, hey, you could bring these things to your home, whether it's dried chickpeas or whether it's tahini or yogurt stone, and kind of incorporate them into your home and your everyday recipes. Hopefully, I'd like to get people excited about also cooking, these interpretation of traditional recipes. And it does say in the beginning of the book, this is by no means the exact same way that they're done in the Middle East. This is my version and vision of them, and how I would interpret them. And I have a lot of respect for the original recipes, but this is something that I brought into the book, is first of all giving these dishes the proper stage, but also showcasing how somebody here in North America or elsewhere around the world can make them very easily with the ingredients that they have around them.
I think, well, first of all, as a chef, you have to be creative. That must be like in the in the job description, is to be able to see things and make them their own, right?
Sure.
Where did that original love of food and cooking come from?
So according to my mother, at a very young age, or like 4 or 5, I was like walking around the kitchen and like playing with pots and pans, and I was a really good eater apparently. I think that also I grew up in a kibbutz in Israel, so the communal village concept that in the north, upper eastern Galilee, a region that has water coming from the mountains. There's trouts in the river. There's berries. And so as kids, we'd ride our bike, or I had a horse, so I used to go horseback riding after school. I went fishing for trout in the river, and then with a friend or two start a fire and just grill a freshly caught trout, or when it was blackberry season, run and get as much as we can in our backpacks and go home and eat them, and occasionally run into the next door village and borrow a couple of watermelons, chill them in the river, and then sit and eat them. So I think having access to great produce in a very diverse region where there's a lot of agriculture really shaped that. And I think then the other big step was we got to travel quite a bit. My dad, was stationed in a few places in Europe, so we got to, travel with the family. So we lived in Italy for a year. We lived in Belgium for nearly 4 years, and then weekend trips would be to France or to Holland or to Germany. And then I got exposed to so many different cuisines. I think that really kind of what started this love for food.
And it's almost like the new book is like a love letter to that upbringing with all those years of experience in between. You go fishing it and cooking. That visual is amazing. What is a nice easy dish that someone can make to capture those flavors at home?
I think there's one super fun, easy recipe. It's a red onion salad with some sumac on it. Super easy to do. The tanginess and acidity from the sumac with those red onion. You don't need to turn on your stove or your oven. A knife, an onion, a little sumac, olive oil, and you got yourself a fantastic salad without even cooking. And I think there's a great salad in the book. Those are the ones that don't even require cooking. Um, and then there's some more elaborated one that require some, longer time preparation.
Do you have, again, I'm going to ask you to play favorites. Do you have a go-to that you like it, that you're like, okay, I need a comfort food day, or to I just need to eat this food to reset. You know what I'm asking. Is there a food
To
that does that?
me, and I think a lot of people in the region might have the same effect. A good bowl of hummus with tahini, or hummus tahini and fava for breakfast, or just in the middle of the day, or sometime for dinner. It's one of my happiest places, for that. So just like, it's something that's in the culture back home and in a lot of other country. You'd go and get a bowl of hummus with some onions on the side and some pickles and some chilies. And that might be the same time that a warm pita bread with some olive oil makes me very, very happy. I don't need a whole lot more in my life.
Oh, I'm with you on that. Fresh bread, whether it's pita or challah or really anything, it's just that warmth yumminess, right? That's like
Yeah,
eating a hug.
yeah,
And it also proves that sometimes the simplest foods really are the best ones to give
it
you those food
is.
memories.
It is, and I think that in the book also we talk a lot about, sure, some preparation take a little bit longer. It's about the length, but it's not about necessarily the complexity of it, or having a lot of different ingredients. And I think that region, like a lot of other places, like places in France or in Italy, or other places, the most simple piece of produce or fish or meat that's simply seasoned, grilled, or baked or cooked, it's a happy place. I also enjoy some more elaborated preparation here and there, but at home, for sure, things, if it's not fast and easy, I don't want to do it. Or if I am putting the time into it, then I can spend time entertaining and hosting people. So I'll do the, heavy lifting ahead of time. I get that all the time from friends who come over. I was like, don't you need to be in the kitchen right now? I was like, no, I was already there 3 hours ago, and now it's ready. So now I can hang out with you and we can have a good time. Yeah, so that's kind of my go-to. Simple, easy, full of flavor. And that's kind of how I cook, at least in the last 5, 10 years.
Best of everything combined. I love it. Is there something that you know now about cooking and or spices that you wish you knew when you first got started?
Um, I don't regret, or I don't think I would have done anything different in terms of the journey I took. The one thing I would say is, as somebody who runs a business now for 16 years, is I wish I had some more business tools earlier in the day. I've learned a lot and I've had a lot of people help me, but some things I learned, I would say the hard way, but it took me longer, and I wish I had that proper education when it came to the business side of it, and sales and marketing and organization, on basic tools on how to do it, which is why I came up with this idea of the Culinary Institute that we're building in Israel, where I want to have our students, as of next year, the first cohort, really give them these tools for success, or at least give them the basic understanding of what is a lease looking like, how do you negotiate terms about contracts, branding, trademarks. Um, in terms of the food, I think it was very important that I washed dishes and I cleaned a lot of vegetables and I cleaned the floor and I scrapped the stove. And very important to do all of that. I don't believe in shortcuts. It also allowed me to pick my path. And the proof is that after nearly 20 years of cooking, I did a career change and I started a whole new career. So I don't know that I would be able to do my job today properly without the 20 something years in the kitchen of understanding what food is. And I think that's what is the thing that set us as a company at La Boîte, is that we think food, we obsess about food. We so happen that we deal with spices, but first it's food first. How can we make the best possible food? And then what would it take to do it?
I love food first tagline. That's beautiful. You mentioned the Galilee Culinary Institute. Do you want to just share? I know about it, but
Sure.
what is it and why are you so excited about it?
Yeah, so I left for culinary school in the late 90s. I left home, my family, and I went to abroad to Europe. There was there was one school back then, and I wanted to see if I could get something different. And pretty much since that day, 97, I started thinking about what can we do in Israel. The culinary scene nowadays in Israel is mind blowing. It's one of the best in the world, I firmly believe, from not only food, but hospitality and design and everything in between, and wine. And for many years, I was looking for partners to kind of bring this to life. And luckily, 6 years ago, I partnered with a Jewish National Fund, and a US based organization that does incredible work for Israel, both in the south and in the north. We shook hands and since then have been working on what now is called Galilee Culinary Institute, set to open in May of 2024 in Kibbutz Gonen, which is part of the greater Kiryat Shmona area, so Upper Eastern Galilee, where I am from. It's a 12-month flagship program taught in English. Groups of 15 students from around the world. It's open to anyone from around the world who qualifies and can, go through the application process. Our goal is to really rethink culinary education. What is needed for somebody in this culinary world to succeed? And for us, it's of course cooking and baking, but also chocolate making and beer brewing and wine making and food styling and food photography, food journalism. We really want to expose our students to as many possible aspects of the culinary world, and together with them, help them find the right path. when they graduate so they can move on and have a better chance of succeeding. We want to give them the opportunity to impact their curriculum and choose what they want to focus their time on, whether it's our culinary farm, we have 5 acres at the school, whether they want to work with chocolate, whether they want to be a general manager of a restaurant, and that's where they see their path. I think that we want to take their love for food to the right place where they can be happy and succeed.
And this, well, when I was asking you before, what you know now, so you're basically educating them so people know all the options within food, because food
Yes,
is not, I mean, it's good for cooking and eating, but there's so much more to it as an
absolutely. And I
industry.
and I, want to share with them my story of spice blending, and I want others to share their food activism story or food journalism. So hopefully a light bulb in their head at some point clicks, like, I think this is what I want to do. We've interviewed a young man recently who is hopefully going to be part of our first group, who is currently a web developer with a great career. He's in his mid 30s or early 40s and discovered food and is willing to do a career change, and loves the notion that at GCI, Galilee Culinary Institute, he will be able for 6 months to explore different aspects and then pick the right area for him to move forward. And that makes me very happy that we are able to attract people. We're not expecting people to come there with a vast knowledge in the industry. We really want to help them choose that career path that's right for them. And luckily for us today, you could work in a lab for a food manufacturer. You could be a food activist. As I said, you can be a writer. You could even be a knife maker. And that's great too.
Food is all about the love of food, and there's so many different paths, creatively, uh, but that it's a road that people can explore on their own. But really, it all comes down to that food first and love of food. So, thank you so much, Lior, for your time today. Where can people learn more about you?
So they can go to laboiteny.com, which is LABOITENY.com. We have amazing content that we add all the time. We have 4 emails a week with recipes and tips and tricks. I travel quite a bit, so I might be around your home sometime soon, cooking a dinner, doing a spice class or a spice talk. I would love to see you either on the road or in New York. Obviously, on the different social media platform, simply La Boîte NY, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LABOITENY, and then the website.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Lior, for spending time with us. And thank you for tuning in to Taste Buds with Deb. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe on YouTube and or your favorite podcast platform. And you can go to jewishjournal.com to get recipes like the ones discussed today and read the articles that go with each episode. And you can learn more at tastebudswithdeb.com. So spice up your food, enjoy your food, food first. And until next time, bon appetit.